we're starting to see more about DeepSeek being under scrutiny, right? So there's a lot of allegations out there. We hit on this quite a bit during the roundtable last week around using others' data to train their models, specifically OpenAI. Speaking of OpenAI, so DeepSeek using OpenAI's data, they're under the microscope. DeepSeek's in a lot of heat. So we'd love to hear from both of you gents on what's going on here. Let us know what's happening.
Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, so what it looks like is OpenAI is suspecting that DeepSeek was pulling the data they were generating and extracting out of ChatGPT to train their model. And truthfully, this isn't a shocking revelation. This is something people have been running out of data to be able to train models on. So the next logical step is start training it on the outputs that are coming from all of these models. So I think this is where the industry is going to go, because as much new data is created, it's not enough to get it to that, superior augmented reality that people's are feeling is going to happen. So I think this is something that's happening, and it's going to continue to happen. And it's the only way to be able to start getting more new data to be able to train models.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about synthetic data and how we're running out of data sets to train on. But I think that this is just a consequence or a symptom of being closed source, right? I think the open source community has just grown so substantially, and it has proven its commercial viability, even though it's open source, because there's a lot of commercial tactics that are used in open source technologies whereby which the code base to a platform can be released fully openly out on the internet, typically on places like GitHub, but do still have commercial options for enterprise deployments. And so I think that this is a symptom of being closed source, and I think we're seeing open source players out there who are reportedly nation state funded, we can't confirm or deny that, that are using techniques like distillation to copy how closed source models reason through problems.
Yeah, it's a good point. And we chatted about this on the roundtable. We spoke of that phrase distillation, right? They're distilling the data. Now, you brought up a good word, and I think, we have a lot of technical people out there that understand synthetic versus how you train the model on our human data, right? What we offer it. Can you just quickly go over the difference between what we're normally giving the model? And I think there was a study out there where by the year 2030, we're running out of what we can train the model on. We're going to start having to use some of the synthetic data to come up with different ways to train the model. I don't know if I'm saying that right, Nick and Jason, but if you can kind of land that plane for me. I know a lot of people out there want to understand, where is this going? What does that mean?
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of where we're at the tipping point. Is the data that's being generated out of OpenAI or Claude, is that part of their intellectual property, or is that, and does that need to be copyrighted, or is that something that anyone can grab and be able to take it and train their own model? So I think that's going to be great to watch how this lawsuit takes shape, to see, is there going to be new guidance and direction on what the definition of the intellectual property of these model outputs?
Yeah, so synthetic data it's fake. It's made up. From a cybersecurity standpoint, answering in that way, we never want to test on production data or on production systems, right? When we are building applications, or application teams are building applications, it's always wise to use test data or fake data so that we can avoid any sort of mistakes. There can be mistakes made on perhaps leakage of the data. So we're really devaluing the data set itself, so that we have nothing to worry about. Now, from a model training standpoint, I'd say that synthetic data gives us the opportunity to produce data that wasn't created by humans, but rather by machines. And I think there's a huge play out there on the creation of synthetic data. But now this begs the question: is will future models' responses or their completions be based on reality, right? Because if these models are being trained on synthetic data sets that aren't representative of the real world, are we going to get real world answers? So that's something that's left unanswered for now.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, that was Nick. You're foreshadowing a potential podcast episode that we're currently filming about that. I had a great time with you all over at the Dallas meetup. Big shout outs to them and Carson and team. But one of the guests that they had there, I had a conversation just about that synthetic data and what we're training the model on, and is it even reality? And we got deep. So I'll leave it for the podcast. I'm excited about that. I want to switch gears here. Topic 3 of Google. I saw a lot of Meta during the Super Bowl ads. I actually enjoyed their commercial.
Yeah.
And then obviously OpenAI and then DeepSeek's been in big talks, but I'm trying to figure out where Google's at. But here they come and just start spending, speaking of cash, we get the DeepSeek of, hey, we do things at 5-6 mil, which I don't think is true. And then on the flip end, it's like, hey, let's go spend more money. And here comes OpenAI with their ad, and then Google with their huge investment. Jason, I know you've been tracking this pretty closely. Google spending a ton on AI and what they're doing there specific to their models. You want to touch on that a little bit and just share what's going on?
Yeah. So last week, Google announced 4 new models that are solving different problem sets, and it's all under the banner of Gemini 2.0. And they've got Flash, Flashlight, Flash Pro, experimental, and these are very powerful, bringing a lot of good quality to that. But the market did not react kindly to them. I think it took a 5 or 6 point hit because I think the DeepSeek effect. People are seeing that spending billions on training data may not be the most efficient way. So they're going to have to find new ways to do that. But there's a lot of quality models that they just released, and being able to test those out and getting some good quality results from it so far.
Yeah, I think that the Google, the irony here is that in 2017, their researchers are the ones who released the paper that started all of this. It was called Attention is All You Need, right? And that was the basis for transformer models. So to see them sort of, I don't want to call them laggards. I just feel like perhaps that there are indications of behaviors from, I would say both Google and Anthropic are playing this really safely. And I think that may be mistaken as a lack of, keeping up pace with the Joneses. And when I say the Joneses, I mean like OpenAI, right? So I think their apprehension can be perceived without, actually validating this as a means to do this more safely and more responsibly. And that may actually being mistaken as like them just being slow to getting off the start line. What do you think about that, Jason?
I think you're absolutely right. I think they're playing more of the enterprise play, and enterprises want to make sure that it's secure. They're not focused on the new bells and whistles. They want to make sure that their data is secure, the outputs are correct. So I think, it's great to see 20 years of Google growing up, because probably in the early 2000s, Google would have been the OpenAI and just let's push out as many new products as possible. Now they're much more mature company, and they're taking the more thoughtful approach and making sure they're focusing on safety, security, and governance. So it's great to see.
It is. I think excuse me. I'm sorry. I think that there's a lot to be said for the dominance of open source, and I'm going to call it now as a prediction. And I think I think that there's going to be a major closed source provider right now, I don't know which one, who will in the next year release an open source model, because they have no choice but to jump on the bandwagon. And they realize that the communal support that comes along with being a part of the open source community, which in exchange you are releasing company proprietary data, right? And libraries and things like that. I think you'll find that the communal support and how much faster you can grow when you have a community surrounding you who are there to tinker and help you improve the thing that you released, they'll find that far outweighs the cost of releasing the proprietary data.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. And yeah, and I think, and I want to switch gears here in a little bit, because this is really good. This is really meaty, and I'd love to engage the audience. And if you all, for those that are listening now or in the future, if you could jump in the comments, or feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn. We actually, this next topic actually came in from a direct message on LinkedIn, a DM from LinkedIn, but I'd love to see it in the comments, right? To your point, Nick, which one of these organizations, these enterprises that are currently closed source, are going to jump into the open source? It's interesting. I got my feelings about that. We chatted about that during our roundtable, but I'm curious, Google or what's Meta up to? Apple, are they flying under the radar as well? Microsoft, another big player who is spending a ton of cash on investments and features, and now agents, rolling that out recently with Mustafa Soliman as their CEO of AI, or CAIO. And I'm so interested about that. Google, last year I think they spent 52 billion. This investment was 75. Nick, I think I heard you say it the other day. Look, they're just playing chess. They're flying under the radar. They have great infrastructure. They're just playing chess. This is not a checkers game. They don't need to be out in front and be the what we would call in football, just doing the hoorah stuff, right? Like they're slowly, steadily going to be winning market share, investing some money.
And I think the ones getting the most attention have something to prove, right?
Right. Good point.
Yeah, and they have to. I don't want to say beat their chests in a bad way, but they need to show that. Yeah, Watson X. Let's talk about that in a second. Good one, Jay. I think that they have something to prove, and they got to show that they can keep up, right? And now that they're out there and they've communicated this message, they have to constantly develop and keep pace with the reputation that they're trying to purport. But yeah, Watson X is outstanding, by the way. They're actually a partner of White Glove AI. And I think the whole set of Granite models, they've already adopted DeepSeek. They are another silent player. I shouldn't say silent in a bad way. Once again, it's more about, they are, like you said, Albert, on that enterprise route. And I personally think that they have the best governance ecosystem amongst all the hyperscalers when it comes to enterprise AI adoption.
Yeah. Well, switching gears, and I see some,
and that was another one that was, they are under the radar, but talk about terrible commercials. When Apple was rolling out the AI intelligence commercials, I mean, they were targeting people that were slackers and not really high performers, and use my Apple Intelligence, and now you can be a high performer. I was like, I think you're missing the mark here of what AI is.
If we know anything about Steve Jobs, he's created the AI hologram. He's going to come back. He's going to take over this thing, and he's not even alive. I don't know what's going on over there. I used to be a huge Apple fan. I know you gents hate when you get the green text from me. I got the Samsung Flip, right? I'm all over Google. I don't know what's going on with Apple. I hope they figure it out. They got the cash, clearly. I mean, everyone's spending money. They have the cash. So we'll see what they do.